Feeling trapped by all the stuff? Can't keep up? No time to think or plan? Has the rush and gush of modern life got you trapped?
Slow is the new fast. Slow is the new fast.
Slow is the new fast.
Set your coordinates. It's Mach 0, making time for life, one thing at a time, with your host, the VIP coach, John Davidson.
You're listening to JD, the VIP coach, coming to you from highlevelperformance.com. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I hope that the folks listening to this show, you're an entrepreneur or you're a highly successful leader, sales producer, and you're looking for ways to get even better at what you do. If I know you, if I know why you're listening to this show, there are some very clear reasons. Number one, you don't think you're making the most of your business opportunities. Two, you think you can get a lot more out of your team. You're wanting to build a unified team that's fit for the challenge, that's competent. You want to be able to authorize them so that you can mobilize your gifts and live on purpose. You want that kind of support system. You want a business that serves your life rather than consume your life. You want to be able to liberate yourself because when you started your business, you had very high hopes that everything would get less and less complicated. You wanted things to be more simple. But as you got good at what you did and as you went out in the marketplace, you collected more checks, more checks, more checks. You got one, you didn't get one, you got one, you didn't get one. You acquired experience. And with that experience, you've acquired wisdom. So with that being said, what do you have? Do you have a high-level performance business or do you have a limiting, perplexing, and complex business? Take a snapshot. How would you describe your current life? Are you getting to the qualities that really matter to you? Yeah. How are you organizing your life? I think it's a very powerful question for today's show. Is what really moves you, motivates you, inspires you? What causes movement in your life? What are the sources of creation that bring you into the behaviors, the choices, the actions, the decisions that you compose moment by moment? I'm fascinated with this question of what really moves a leader to come into their leadership. What caused you to start your business? You probably had some sort of an idea, or you hated your boss, you wanted to fire them, or you said, I can do something better. I can do something better, and I trust that that thing that I'm going to do is going to be better. I have high hopes it'll be better. And you set off on an optimistic path. What got you to do that? What was it that got you to say to yourself, okay, I have answers for myself. I don't have answers from someone else. I have self-appointed answers. And those answers bring me to select from a range of options what I want to create. So what we can know for sure is that a lot of the outcomes that you have brought yourself to in your life, a lot of the outcomes that have come into being are because you've made decisions about what's important. And what's really cool is, you see, you can rethink your life at any time. What's neat is, man, you can reconsider your future at any moment. There are no circumstances that qualify or disqualify you from doing that. Everything's up for grabs. I find it's almost intimidating to realize that at any time I can reconsider my life. I can act as if, or I can imagine if I just cut from my history. Chapter 1's closed. Chapter 2 is a choice. Everything's up for grabs. What do I really want to create? From where do I take my cues? What do I organize my life by? And see, I think that's a very fundamental choice, and it has to do with orientation. And oftentimes we fall asleep to the fact that we have two very clean, clear orientations. We either react and respond to what's prevailing in our life, and a lot of us, probably 95% of us, without even knowing, we fall asleep automatically to that pattern. And so what do we organize our life by? Whatever's shooting down the pipes, whatever's coming at us. We're a mouse in a maze, and we react and we respond to that which is sitting in the circumstances. So what do we do to get better? What's our path to development? Try to respond better, more intelligently to the circumstances. And we've even got it linked to like lower stress, live more healthy, have a clearer head, look at your mental content, clean up your attitude. We've got all these introspective strategies, like looking at the interior of us, our attitudes, our mental content, our quirks, our fixes. We're turning our eyes around and looking at ourselves going, well, if things are not being responded to well in life, maybe there are some leverage points to respond better. So I'm going to work on myself. I can't work on life. I can't control life, so I'm helpless. So what I'll do is I'll just let the circumstances be what they are. I'll try to work with those circumstances, and I'll look within myself to respond better and reply better, to react better to those circumstances. For a lot of us, that's the way we define development. Our development is based on something's wrong with me, I'm inadequate, I need to fix it, or I have a problem here. Ooh, I got a problem here. Ooh, I need to remove it. So what's organizing action is the problem or the unwanted quality, and that's like demolition. That's not architecture. That's demolition. I'm removing something unwanted in my business. Listen to your meetings. Listen to what you're talking about. Poke into the conversations that you are constructing in the business from. What are you talking about? Are you talking about what's the issue financially? Are you talking about the growth issues? Issues, problems, issues and problems. See, and most of your effort is organized around, okay, well, we've got a problem here. But when you wake up one day to realize that all the problems are insoluble, which means they're not dissolvable, you can't actively solve them. In fact, if you tried to, it would lead down the road to a backslide. Let me explain. So you take action. I've got a problem with something in the business. I take action to remove it. The problem goes away, at least the symptoms do. And then the original action to remove the problem also goes away because since the problem's gone, I no longer need to do it anymore. And then there's a slight period of triumph, but then there's this sort of backsliding. There's this sort of outlawing, being ambushed by the same things that happened before. And you can see it over long swaths of time where we make a really good attempt to make a change effort. We're underway. We start moving closer to something that we choose. We choose to remove the problem, then the problem goes away. And then we find ourselves neutralized and backsliding, facing the same thing. And that leads to discouragement and frustration, and then the amplitude of the emotions go up, and we say, oh, well, I need to get better at solving that problem. Boy, I didn't really know what I was doing. Boy, that's a path to learning. But if we look at it with a closer eye, if we look at it structurally, systemically, we're falling into a very dysfunctional pattern. And when I look at people's lives in coaching, I find that this is something right beneath their nose. It's like salt that's sitting on the table, but they don't see it. It's a blind spot. But after looking at things more carefully, slowing them down, which is what coaching is for, is to reflect on why are you doing what you're doing. Because we know that the underlying structures, the geometry, the pattern, the story, is the most powerful component in organizing behavior. The way something is structured determines the movement, just like a brick and a ball, or the building that you're in. That shapes the path to the door. A ball shapes the way it moves. A brick shapes the way it moves, just like our lives. Our lives are composed of structures. And structures are larger patterns that are at play that lead to or lead the path of least resistance where it's easiest to go. Those are larger systems. But a lot of us aren't fluent in systems thinking or structural dynamics. We don't know what it is. But with a keen eye, as our awareness starts to go up, we can start to see things from a different perspective. We can see things interdependently rather than fragmentally, or seeing things in a reductionistic way, situationally. We can start to see things in a structural way. So there's an alternative orientation. You take your actions from the choices you make. It's so simple. What you cause to exist is what you love enough to cause to exist. Every creation starts with love, and the best creations come out of loving something for its own sake. If you walk around the room, a business owner, and you say, why do you create your business? What are you doing? What's your mission? What's your purpose? What's your driving force? Well, I'm in business to make a profit. Well, I need to hit this goal. Well, I want some market share. Well, I'd like to get new customers. Yeah, I'd like to have this new customer service technology. Well, I'd like to upgrade it this way. Yeah, I want to be able to set the bar in the industry. Well, all this good stuff. And you know, some of those things are very important content to the creator and the collective team. But it really deserves, I think, a closer examination of what's really cooking up the urges that are designed, that are desiring what is created. Because it's sort of like, whoa, wait a minute. You know, you can't measure spirit. You can't put spirit in a box. You can't house spirit in something you can measure. Spirit is something that is born out of an intrinsic desire to see something come alive or become real because you love it enough to make it real. And when you put that kind of love behind what it is that you want to create, it's amazing how many great possibilities become real. Other arbitrary decisions come into view. Suddenly you give you and the team better instructions as to a direction that you want to go in. Conversations begin. Things start differently. A whole new atmosphere for learning starts because now we're learning by creating something. So one person might say, well, JD, then, I want to build a business. Where do I learn how to create a business? And my answer is that you envision a business that you want to create and you get started. That the creative process is one of experimentation. And that process itself has its own reward. So we can orient ourselves around the outcomes that we want to create, or we can orient ourselves around the circumstances. I often hear people say, well, yeah, I don't work the outcomes, I just go with the flow. That's a disguise. I'm sorry, that's a cop-out. And what that's doing is masking a deeper belief that I don't have the power to create what I want. And they're avoiding discouragement by throwing their hands up and saying, well, if you can't beat them, join them. I'll just go with the flow. It's giving the need to be present kind of a bad side. There's a great, great quality in leadership to show up and be present to the present moment. It's a huge movement right now in the world. Eckhart Tolle chanting, well, be present, the whole now and getting in the now and not leaving the now, and we're obsessed with the now. Why are we obsessed with the now? Well, there's two reasons. In the larger context of a creative process, getting in the now is the place in which we actually create, because it's the one place that we can control the time that we have. So in the now, we can, using our awareness, we can begin to see the choices and the options and make awareness-based choices upon what matters to us. We can also sever from our unproductive or outdated thinking. That when we're in a first-person perspective, all we do is support our decisions and our way of relating with life with our comparisons to our database. We come to life with a history. We collect artifacts over time that make our assumptions go live. We have cognitive biases and reflexes out of making a belief go live. We live out of the way we expect the world to be rather than the way the world is. We're kind of prisoners of our own machines living inside our concepts instead of living in direct relationship to our present moment. All good. All very, very important. The reason why this is important to unveil our concepts is that we don't need to edit life. That would short-circuit the creative process. As a matter of fact, when we edit life out of our own concepts, we start to obey our concepts rather than obey our choices. And this is a fundamental shift. So what do? Well, in the human potential movement, we've gotten way too excessive about trying to change our baggage, change our inner stuff. We've tried to handle our shit in the human potential movement. It's all good. It's well intended. But see, you can handle all of your shit and still not create what you want. Why do I know that? Because we have to look at what the underlying structure is playing out to be. That when we're in underlying structures where I have a concept that I'm not worthy of creating what I want, what am I going to do? I'm going to make sure that I add all the extra steps, create a level of difficulty, make sure that I rig things so that I can deserve the things that I want. So what do I inadvertently do? I add extra steps. Yeah. I try to make impediments. I create conflicts to manipulate myself to live up to my level of worth. I mix my identity with what I want to create. I make creating an identity the same. And so what do? Well, I'm always going to put things on hold. I don't deserve them until I have earned them. I've rigged it. I've kept score. So what do? I live out of the concept of living into what I believe. I'm not enough unless. I'm not enough unless. And the underlying belief that I keep begetting is that I'm trying to affirm or offset that belief by doing something that's just enough to outdo my negative belief that I'm not enough. It's an interesting thing, isn't it? It's almost, as you listen to it, it's kind of nutty, right? I mean, you can see how dysfunctional, you can see how invalid that really is. That creators don't need to check in with their best selves. They don't need to be someone. In fact, the more that they focus on themselves, the less they're capable of creating. Because they're constantly mixed up and meddling with who they are. They're concerned with and at issue with their identities. And so they are caught in their ideals of their false standards of living up to something. And then always comparing what they currently do. So when the things don't go well, their identities just go to an earthquake. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I'm unsuccessful. What does this say about me? Oh my gosh, I'm in an early stage. I look like a fool. I shouldn't. I need to play it off like I know what I'm doing. I'm going to bullshit my way through it. I'm going to let everybody think that I know what I'm doing here. We're great pretenders. Oh yes. And we love to trade off our current level of limitations or our recognizable incompetencies with overconfidence. We put a veil around our perceived incompetencies out of shame, is we don't want people to know that we don't know what the hell we're doing. And so we try to help the world get impressed with what we're doing because we're more interested in getting noticed and getting seen as special as opposed to creating what we really love in life. You know what I'm talking about. We all have an ego. At some level, we've assigned ourselves to the job of looking differently than the inside reality that we're paying attention to. Oh yes, our self-talk is very, very loud. Yep. We see our experiences and then we make a conclusion. And then we bring it back to our identity. Well, what does this say about me? Well, I am like this. But I should be like this. But I'm like this. But I should be like this. Well, I'm like this. But I should be like this. And we get into comparison thinking to what we think we should be compared to what we think we're doing or how we did. And that's one structure. So we set an ideal of ourselves. We compare that to what we think of ourselves. Yet we don't look directly at the current reality. If I'm learning how to play piano, I have to know my current level of competency to make strategic actions or adjustments to learn and get better. If I'm learning how to sailboard, I have to recognize where I am in contrast to where I want to be. I have to take my identity out of the process. So my identity isn't at issue. I may hate myself for certain things. I may have certain regrets about decisions I've made. Yeah, I may have not acted in the way that I should have, or I may have made mistakes. It's all that. We all have that. We've been princes and we've been also rans. We've made mistakes. We're human. What's wrong with knowing parts of ourselves that we don't like? You can't manufacture loving yourself all the time. So we're going to take a break, and I'm going to come back and talk more about this identity piece and some steps that you can take to improve your capacity to create such that your motivation isn't coming out of who you are or who you're needing to be, but connecting more with this love that you choose to create from. I'll be right back.
It's Monday morning. I'm drained.
You've got mail.
Look at this. It's the Monday Advantage video. Yeah. Now I can get past the distractions and implement something new.
The Monday Advantage. It's that easy. Just subscribe free for a limited time at highlevelperformance.com. Every Monday, launch the week with fresh tools, giving you the right state of mind, focus, and confidence. See what becoming a gifted boss and serial creator is all about. Subscribe today at highlevelperformance.com. That's highlevelperformance.com. And start enjoying your Monday Advantage today. Grow your business and grow as a human being with these captivating books authored by the VIP coach himself, John Davidson. The Day I Built My Barbecue is about creative freedom. Learn how you can not only live well, but also grow a thriving business at the same time. John shows you his step-by-step technique with the principles, strategies, and steps to move from a business operator to a business owner. The Day You Build Your Barbecue is the day we all wish for. Totally free of distractions, totally available to living well, fully present. Then don't miss Unstoppable You. It's about creative value. When we do what we love and love what we do, we discover ways to make our business more fun and monetize our passions. Through stories, tools, and steps, this book will help you bring something to the world that no one else can and bridge your most unique talents to the deepest aspirations you have of the future. And stand in the presence of all you are. It's about creative purpose. What does it mean to live on purpose? How do we work with the mystery that life presents us at every moment? In this book, John shows us through the silent spaces in life how to connect with our innermost sacred projects and passages. You'll learn how to bring the work, language, and presence of the soul into everything you do. Visit highlevelperformance.com to pick up any of these books in paperback or Kindle editions today. That's highlevelperformance.com.
Having a life where you have the creative freedom to do what you love and to offer the world something that only you can bring to the table. That is the world of high-level performance with John Davidson. That is the world of radical creativity. That is the world that you can be a part of when you realize all that is holding you back is you. Begin the journey through one-on-one coaching that gives you the finesse for business and lifetime achievement, and find your place on the roadmap to high-level performance today. Visit highlevelperformance.com. From go time to slow time. Slow is the new fast. Mach 0, making time for life one thing at a time. With VIP coach John Davidson.
You've lost that love and feeling. Oh, that love and feeling. You've lost that love and feeling. That love and feeling. Yeah, you've lost that love and feeling, yeah? Why do we lose that love and feeling for what we want to create? Because we get discouraged. Things didn't go as expected. We get frustrated. We forget that that's all part of the process, but we get emotionally tense. We get fueled by emotions, and then our emotions turn us off, and we make decisions to disconnect. We go to lethargy. We get lazy. We resist. We go to boredom. We procrastinate. We lower our standards. We compromise. We pack up and go home. Instead of holding the tension to where we want to go from where we are, it's just too far. We don't have the intestinal fortitude to tolerate these discrepancies, to hold the tension between what's going on now and where we want to be. I think it's because we just don't have the formal training in the creative process. Our education system of leading us out has been more about following the dogmatic expectations of a set of knowledge that people feel, or someone in authority said, well, if we know this, we'll be better people. We'll be able to avoid being inadequate. Can you believe that? Our education system, the dominant narrative of our education system is we start with being an inadequate person. I know something that you don't. I have answers for you. Well, did you realize that when you have answers and you're certain about something, it means obedience? It means you have to have someone obey it. It denies someone's authenticity. It interferes with their ability to come into knowing or creating knowledge on their own. How do we know? How do we learn? We learn by having a place to go. We learn by knowing what we want to create. We learn by having a vision. We learn by having a current reality from which we can make observations and learn and use current reality as a constructive ally, even if it's good, bad, or ugly. It's a very helpful piece. Also an acquired taste, of course, because naturally as humans, we haven't learned how to work with the creative side of current reality, but it's a tremendous resource. You've already done it. You don't know what you know. When you created kids, you used current reality to observe the current stage that the baby was in. And based on that current stage, you knew what you needed to do more of or less of. You learned so that you could bring that baby into life. And as you've parented children, you've observed them at current stages. You've observed your parenting. You've observed their current level of development. You've observed their shitty behavior. You've observed their potential. You've observed them when they do beautiful things and make great effort. And that was great input. Did you impose your identity on it? Maybe. Maybe when you were raising kids, your kids, you think that they represent who you are. So you make conditions. And you say, I'll love you if you do this, or I'll give this to you if you do this, or I'll give this to you if you do this. Put yourself away. Do my way. I'm not doing your way. Let's do my way. And then there's a kind of a hostile takeover. And the kid begins to say, well, what about me? I got to live up to my parents' expectations. That's an order from God. I want attention. I want love. I want to know that I'm okay because I haven't learned myself. So I'm going to live up to my parents' scoring system. I'm going to follow their way. And then what do? They expense themselves. Later on in life, they become codependent. They get overwhelmed when someone is interested in them. There's not a script to follow. It seems awkward. They haven't spoken up. They don't know how to use their voice. They don't know how to assert their boundaries. They don't know how to let go of unhealthy relationships. So we as parents, oftentimes, we look at our children and we think our children, we're afraid for them. And so we say, well, here's what you need to do. We have answers. And we don't help them. Because the minute we have answers for them, they become our project. What we have to recognize is, through current reality, is they're leaders. They have capacity in them. We have to trust that. We have to open our eyes. That's part of seeing the full reality, of being able to witness reality as it is. See, you're relating with what I'm saying as a parent because you're focusing on the outcome, the highest hopes for your children. But to bring them up into life successfully, it involves having a very clear picture. You have to register a picture of current reality, including their competencies and limitations. Otherwise, if you don't know their competencies and you don't know their limitations, then you're being a hero. And the hero is the caretaker, the one who's got a future for the other. The hero is the one that's going to make it all just fine. But the hero doesn't realize that they disempower, they take away the ability for the other to control their own life. They handicap the other by keeping them from danger. But see, to keep them from danger, they're never, ever really ready in the way that your conviction or your desired state wants. So what are you going to do? Protect them from danger? Avoid the risks? Teach them everything, help them avoid those dangers, keep them out of harsh experiences, don't let them experience anything, don't let them fall on their own decisions? Or are you going to trust their decisions? And trust that the process of growing up involves making good ones and bad ones. Are you going to make them a performer or are you going to make them a learner? Are they going to have plenty of second chances, take risks, make room for mutation, make room for trial and error, liberate them? Or are you going to help them stumble upon, they've got to get it right the first time? Perfectionism. I'm slow to react. I'm slow to start something because I don't want to get slammed. I want to make sure that I get the approval. I'm addicted to approval rather than the invitation of my own desires. Hey, you may be living an adult life where you're still caught and trapped in this net. You're just an adult child, but you never quite got that from your mom and dad. Your mom and dad made conditions for you. And so you're kind of reneging. You're not quite sure whether to trust your decisions. Well, maybe life is about to begin for you. And that beginning starts with, who has the answers for you? Well, does someone else have your answers? Or do you have your answers? I'm not saying you know everything, but I'm saying the answers as to what you want your life direction to be. You don't compromise your life spirit in selling your soul to someone else's goals. And if you don't know where you're going, well, you'll probably work someone else's goals, not yours. It's easy to be taken over. People do what they do unless they have something more compelling to do. Your default is to follow the range, Follow what the other's doing. Follow what someone else has in mind for you. What do you have in mind for me? What do you want me to do? That's an employee. But a leader is one who composes a direction, who chooses a direction because inside it matters, and brings it outside. They bring the internal to the external. And as they bring it through, there's a process of something coming into life. There's moments, there's delays, there's swaths of time, things that work, things that don't work. There's improvisation. And as you're going along, you're remaining in an orientation to your creating, to what you're wanting to create. You organize from your aspirations and values. And you know, it animates you. So rather than you going into life with, oh my gosh, I've got to get rid of these things, or I'm not good enough, or whatever concepts are driving you, you find that there's a space beyond your concepts where you recognize the concepts. You don't need to keep them at arm's distance. Your concepts are your beliefs, your assumptions, your fears, all your head stuff. It's not like you get rid of your head stuff. In fact, you live closer to it like a roommate. You become so familiar with it like an old friend that it's not at issue. You're just a rascal. You've got the good sides and the bad sides. You carry with you those psychological factors. Remember the movie Nightmare on Elm Street? You probably remember that movie. You remember little Freddy Krueger? You know, that little jerk that would hang out in people's dreams? I thought there was a deeper lesson in that movie. You know, if you remember Nancy, the main character, the reason why Freddy would come around is that he was a product of her own internal psychology. He basically lived in the fears of people. You know, what's interesting is you couldn't exercise him. You couldn't extricate him. The harder you tried, the harder he would get a choke on you. And the more that you thought he was real, the more that you gave him power, the more he had power over you. He was the symbolic fear in the mythology of the movie. And when Nancy finally got him to move away, he elected to move away on his own terms. Why? Because she realized that she was just living in her own mind. She redirected her attention from the object, him, and outsmarted it and brought it back to source, the person actually creating it. He was just a pixel in her imagination. Just a hungry ghost in her imagination creeping up on her because of her own fears. And when she released having to shadow box because she composed an object out of that fear, it was no longer an object. It was just the source. She recognized, she looked behind the person kind of putting it all together, and that was something in her. And when she turned her eyes around, she realized and collapsed that whole system. And he just said, well, okay, I'll piss off. I'll go somewhere else. I'll go pee on someone else's dreams. I'll go haunt someone else, someone who is susceptible to believing I am real. But when we live close to our concepts, when we actually bring them up close, and we say, I see you. Come on over here. Let me investigate you kindly, gently. Here it is. We find ourselves liberated just by the moment of recognition, just by registering our mental constructs. And that we don't have to live inside them, but we can suspend from them, just through our awareness, just by regulating them, knowing that they're there. I think that's an important part of creating change, is that we do not need to change the composition of those concepts. That's why affirmations don't work. We don't need to say things to ourselves that aren't true. We don't need to pretend. We just recognize and remain honest with those. And that seems to evaporate. Just like Freddie got up and left, it seems to evaporate all of the grasp, all of the difficulty. It's just an illusion. And then we just sit there and say, okay, I got the concept. That's part of my current reality. I get it. But there's more to the story. There's more in what's in front of me to look at, to recognize what's really there, including the concept, including the old system. And then I set my eyes on what I really want to create. I come out to my levels of importance around what are my aspirations? What do I really, 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 really seek to be creating? Am I talented? Some things I am, some things I'm not. If I'm really talented, do I have to do that in my life? Do I need to put that into monetizing it? Absolutely not. That's just social programming. You can be really good at something and not have to do it in life. There's no rule that applies there. In fact, it's very liberating to realize that. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you have to do it or try to subscribe to loving it, manufacturing love, and you don't. A lot of people that are great at something that don't really love it. But primarily, it's what do I really, really want to create? Then you look at the level of talent that you have. Now, whether you're well-talented or not, you're talented to be talented. You know that you're good at it or not. Knowing that you're not good at it is just as significant to being good at it. If you're good at it, it may be a little easier to take aim. But not being good at it doesn't disqualify you creating what you love. I love creating piano, but when I started, I was not good at it. But that motivated me to get better at it. It motivated learning. When I started sailboarding, I was not good at it. But just because I wasn't good at it doesn't mean that I cut off from doing it. It means that that's where I'm starting from. And so I'm able to make strategic choices. I make adjustments. I get better. I practice. I get up and fall. I get up and fall. I get up and fall until I fall less. When I learned how to ski, I wanted to learn and ski and enjoy the mountains and the views and all those wonderful habitats. But I wasn't good at it when I started. I don't ski because I'm great at skiing. I didn't come out of the box being great at skiing. Strength focusing is way overrated. We don't organize our lives around strength focusing. It's an ancillary item. Yes, it's important to recognize, but all that's important about it is recognizing it accurately. Whether it's good or not good is not the point. It's knowing where it really is. Shameless. Knowing where it really is because you're committed to being true to yourself. And that you moderate your overconfidence, and you also don't exaggerate your weaknesses. But you're not in denial. You see reality for what it is. And then you start out. You say, okay, this is where I'm beginning. And now I know where I'm going. I have a place to go. And you use that. That structure is what you use to unlearn and learn. Unlearn and learn. Unlearn and learn. And you start with nothing. The best creations start with nothing. You create separate from what you know. You're bringing something into being that you don't know how to do. It's not a realistic goal. It's a creation that's true to what really matters to you. That's what it's about. So you've been listening to me for the last half hour or so, and you've been listening to me like a lunatic going into, you can react and respond and organize your life as such, and everything will be at that level, or you can get involved in your life, which I think is what's really the thing we're hungering for, is to be involved in creating something that matters to us. We're happiest when we're involved in doing that. Happiness is the booby prize. Yes, there'll be good days, bad days. We'll be satisfied, unsatisfied. That's not the orientation, how we feel. Bringing things into being require good and bad days, sacrifices, discipline, hardship, difficulty, non-difficulty, the full range. You have to be fluent in all that. Know what you're up against. Recognize current reality. Decide on the desired state. And then we create universes that we live in. We create a universe and we live in that universe. We bring creations into the world. So what's your starting point? What do you want to create? What do you want to bring into being? What matters to you? Start there. Write down your answers. Think of all the options. Choose, 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 choose. Make a selection on the content that matters most in your hierarchy of importance. Make a fundamental choice to become the predominant creative force in your life. Let go of positive thinking. That's positive lying. And embrace self-honesty. You'll get a lot further along. And then bring your creations into being. Make your life's work, your life-building process about bringing creating into your life. You can find us at highlevelperformance.com. A lot of the principles and strategies that I talk about are all great. You probably love these ideas. You agree with me on a lot of these. You say, wow, boy, that's great. Yeah, it's easy to talk about it. But then at the moment of truth, you got to hit the ground running. And taking these back into your life, it requires calibration, help. You got to massage it in. That's why you hire a coach. You hire a climbing buddy, a secret weapon, a guide, someone that can ride the course with you all the way through. Because you're smart enough to know that you don't have all the answers. You have a lot of questions. And that collective learning is far greater than individual learning. It's accelerating the process. Yes, together we are more. The team intelligence is always greater than the individual intelligence. And that's a sign of maturity, of not having to prove to yourself that you are the rugged individualist doing it all, but that you're willing to get help at this stage. And that's how serious you are about what you want to create. It's that nothing happens alone. We live in a world of abundant people. There's people all around us with different treasure chests of talents and gifts. We're in a gift economy. When you look outside yourself, you begin to receive great capabilities and great medicine from people around you that are made to help you. And I think part of the coach's role in the world is to really heal the world in a really great way, to bring people back to a radical creativity, a revolution in the world where people can live into the creative process as their primary organizing force, the centerpiece, the center of action of their lives. I think if they did that, the quality of action that would prevail would be a lot better. And for you, well, you'd be able to bring desired creations in your life and business plan more effortlessly, more effectively, with greater impact and greater learning than ever before. Because reflection is the only antidote to changing your history. And to slow down and really consider what really matters to you and compare what you have to where you're going is what learning is really about. That's adult education. So maybe it's time to really rethink things. Maybe it's time to really throw things up in the air. Maybe it's time for some new approaches and tools and thinking to go about things in maybe a different way. I wonder what lies beyond your ability to know. I wonder what's beyond your certainty. I wonder what's beyond all that. I wonder what possibilities lie in your future. I wonder what destiny is standing in need of you. Because if you got gifts and you've got something that belongs to the world, let's melt any barrier for that world to get what belongs to it. Amen? That's your work as a leader. And that will bring you into a quality of expression in service. It will make you the most highest and most useful human being that you can be. And there's nothing greater than that. It's to live true to your gifts and to live true to what your true heart's desires are. You got a short trip here on earth, man. It's not long. It's pretty short. You got numbered days. You and I are going to die. We live close to death. Let's remember that. Okay? Is that you got to get to your stuff. You got to get to the decisions here. Okay? There's a sense of urgency here. Don't wait. The time is now. Dreams are just an inch away. And so there's lots of potential that's probably lying dormant in you. Let's get it. Let's get your full horsepower. Let's make you a radical creator, a serial creator, a gifted boss, a value creator in the world, and a great business builder, and one who can use life and the context that's in motion of life to accelerate your ability to be useful in the world and learn and develop in the direction that is possible. So we're online at highlevelperformance.com. Thank you for letting me speak into your ear today, and thank you for making this a priority. And I hope I've spiked some curiosity and given you an itch that you've got to scratch. Our number is 714-375-6624. I'm JD. You're listening to the Mach Zero podcast, Making Time for Life one thing at a time. This is the VIP Coach. Thank you very much.
For more tools, go to highlevelperformance.com. Better business, better life. Fast growth, keeping things simple. Or visit us on Facebook. Mach Zero, Making Time for Life, one thing at a time. Set boundaries, focus your attention, and maintain a positive state of mind. Hire a VIP coach to help you. Call 714-912-9261.